This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a Suburban Gothic, to follow this story.
Do you know what time it is? It's time to go Radio Rental. Radio Rental is a podcast with a collection of the scariest stories you've ever heard, all told by real people. Ooh, terrifying. Radio Rental is available now. Listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your stupid podcasts.
I found tapes in the house, audio, video, of a woman.
The Screambox original series, The Trouble with Tessa, is available now. Watch it today, only on Screambox.
And welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to share with you some terrifying things I found on Reddit.com. Tonight, I wanted to delve into some high strangeness with you. I was taking a look at the high strangeness iceberg that was posted to Reddit about a year ago. And while two of these entries are from the iceberg, mostly I just let myself fall down a Reddit hole. And I came upon some really interesting time slips, cryptids, robots, and more. So yeah, folks, it's going to be one of those episodes. Get ready to stretch your brain or roll your eyes, depending on your personality or level of sobriety. Are you ready to get weird with me? Awesome. Let's begin with my favorite type of high strangeness, a time slip. This was posted in the paranormal subreddit just 2 days before this recording. User StrongAd5719 asked, "What's the creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you?" User Osto_cartography came in with a good one. I've told this story before, but here goes. When I was a kid, my family and I went for a walk on the beach during midwinter because we're a little eccentric like that. Halfway through the walk, it started blizzarding fierce, and we decided to head back to the car. On the way back to the car park, my brothers and I were complaining of being tired, hungry, and thirsty. But my dad, who was born and raised in the area, assured us that there was nowhere to buy food and drink anywhere near that particular beach. However, as we battled through the whiteout towards the car park, a building loomed out of the blizzard. It was a strange building, like an annex to a 60s/70s modern comprehensive school. People from the UK will know the style I mean. And squeezed in between 4 hedgerows, atop the spine of a long, flat sand dune, as though it was there first, and the ancient and haggard hedges had somehow grown up around it. Outside was a sandwich board advertising hot drinks and snacks, so we bundled on in. The place was packed. There must have been 4 or 5 dozen tables, and every single one was heaving with pensioners eating tea, toast, tea cakes, soup, etc. When we arrived, there were no other cars in the car park, and the nearest bus stop was in the village at the end of the track, a good few miles away. So, goodness knows where all these old people had come from. The room itself was very strange. The tables and chairs were all mismatched and arranged around glass display cases on podiums filled with moldering taxidermied specimens of local wildlife, except many of the examples were either creatures who lived nowhere near the sea, hedgehogs, badgers, voles, etc., or animals that aren't native or very rare to the area, cormorants, avocets, plovers, etc. At the center of the room was a squared-off spiral staircase leading to the upstairs, which, despite having no curtains visible from the outside and being in the middle of the day in a bright white snowstorm, was pitch dark. I mean, so black we couldn't even see the top of the staircase banisters. We sat down, and my dad went off to get us some food. The oddest thing is that even at that age, I remember looking at the prices on the wall and being very confused because they were all in old money, with prices in, and please excuse my pronunciation, I tried to look this up, and the Google pronunciation of this word is crazy. Halfpennies, sixpence, shillings, etc. It was an open-pass kitchen, and all the equipment behind it looked very old, or retro, I guess, as did the clothes of the very plump, happy women working behind the counter. When my dad came back with the food, he couldn't stop talking about how amazingly cheap it was, and how the women who served him spoke to him using ultra-specific regional dialect terms he thought had completely died out decades ago. He said it was like being a schoolboy at the tuck shop again. We ate our very, very generous and delicious tea cakes and hot chocolate, got back into our coats, hats, scarves, and gloves, and walked back out into the still raging blizzard. The whole time we were there, not a single other person entered or left, despite many tables clearly having finished eating before we even arrived. We battled back to the car, and with much difficulty maneuvered it back onto the track to the main road and headed home. In the years to come, we visited that beach again many, many times. The building was not there. Not only was it not there, there were no signs it had ever been there. No rubble, no ruins, no footprints, no foundations, not even the ancient-looking hedges that it had squeezed itself inside of. Due to the beach being on a long promontory jutting out into a major shipping channel, the area has been fastidiously mapped for centuries. Using my student historical archive access, I studied maps of the area from roughly every decade, right back to the early 19th century, and according to them, there was never, ever a building on that site. Now, it's easy to think as I've grown older, I've become confused as to which beach we visited, but my dad, who was born and raised there, knew exactly which beach we were on, and the beach itself is very, very distinctive. A very long, thin, teardrop spit of sand extending across a river estuary mouth. I know it must have been that beach because I remember seeing the red warning beacons at the top of the suspension bridge, crossing the estuary, blinking through the blizzard. The place didn't exist. Had never existed. I ate tea cakes and drank hot chocolate with my family in a place that simply never was. I loved that one. There were a few other stories in that same question about the glitches in the Matrix. What do you think that, by the way, I haven't talked about time slips in a while. I mention them on and off because I love them so much. But have you ever experienced a time slip? I'd love to hear about it. And what do you think is happening? Is it more like time blindness? Is it just misremembering? You know, one thing I've stopped sharing so much are stories I come across for time slips. A lot of times it's people on road trips. So to be, I don't like to not be skeptical. So the skeptic in me wants to say, well, when you're on a road trip, you're not familiar with the area. A lot of them have to do with like gas stations that never existed. It's like, well, maybe you took a different turn and you weren't familiar with the area. But stories like this are interesting because, like you said, his father knows the area. He found landmarks that matched up with the area. And so it's to go the extra mile to do all that research, and it's still baffling, is pretty interesting. And the old-timey language, the prices, that's pretty fascinating. I love that. I was reading another one, or like kind of a part of one, that mentioned, because it seems like a lot of time slip stories come from England. I see a lot of them from England, a lot from Europe. It seems like I find more of them from like England, Europe, than I do from the US. So I'm not sure. One person had like a theory about at least a certain area that has a lot of time slip stories come out of it in, I forgot what part of England. I'm so sorry to my UK listeners. But there's a train station there, and the way that the trains are underground, it makes like a loop. It like in this area, I guess it's like a circle. And they think that's something to do with like the electricity from the trains and the momentum and, quantum physics and a lot of stuff I don't understand. Hadron Collider. I'm just going to say things that sound similar. That sound like they would fit, particles going very quickly. The way that allegedly, I don't know, I've never tested this, and I don't know if it's an actual proper thing that happens, but allegedly, like if you get one of those watches that's like incredibly accurate down to like the millisecond, and you get into an elevator and you have two of those watches, the person who was in the elevator, their watch will be like a little bit off because of movement. I don't know. I'm not a woman in STEM. I'm just a woman who likes weird stuff. So let me know what you think of that. I have another entry I wanted to read from that same post. I'm going to do like a time slip sandwich of this episode. We're going to start off with a couple, we're going to end with a couple, and in between, the fillings of this sandwich get very weird. So this is another time slip story. This is from user Whiteout. Again, just posted 2 days ago. This one I thought was very cute. We have a Chinese restaurant in my area called Four Seasons Chinese. It has a very dated sign with pandas and bamboo that hasn't changed since the early 90s. This is a sign my wife and I have both been looking at for 20 plus years. One day, we were looking for a new thrift store and we couldn't find it, so we pulled off the road to GPS it. As my wife is looking at her phone, I noticed the sign for Four Seasons had changed. It was almost exactly the same sign with pandas and bamboo, but now said Four Seasons Mexican Cuisine. I pointed it out, confused, to my wife, and we both sat confused and laughing. I thought maybe it was bought out and the new owners didn't want to spend a lot changing the letters on the sign. We continued on with our day as normal and joked about the change later before bed. Fast forward a few months and we're headed to the same part of town on an errand. The place we needed to stop is in the same parking lot as Four Seasons. We joke about it being crudely Four Seasons Mexican. We get to the lot, and the sign says, Four Seasons Chinese, like nothing ever changed. My wife and I still talk about this 10 years later. I especially love when a high strangeness story has a witness. A fellow witness, two witnesses, at least. Sometimes it's more. And it just adds to it. It's like, what was that? You can't really blame it on like stress or sometimes even head injuries or famously that one story on a gas leak. But what happens? I just thought that one was cute. Very low stakes, very fun. Love that they still talk about it. Seems like a fun little bonding moment. Okay, so let's move on from time slips. And again, I told you it's going to get weird. This is something very weird. This was part of the high strangeness iceberg. This was one of the original ones I found on the iceberg because of the comments, because someone in the comments was like, hold up, what is that one? I'm sorry, what does this mean? And I've never heard of it. And it was at the bottom of the iceberg, which means it's like, you know, you're real deep in. So this story originally came from a website that is all in Russian. So the link is in the post, and I always put all of these posts in the show notes, like links to the posts, links to the Reddit posts. And so if you speak Russian or you want to try to use some Google Translate, feel free. You can click, after a few clicks, you can find the original website. I actually went to it. I don't speak Russian, so I didn't get much out of it, but I did like poke around a little bit. So this is an encounter with a Neanderthal on a stick. You can see why the commenter was like, hold up, wait a minute. I need to know more. The encounter occurred in 2012. The eyewitness, Alexander O., did not tell anyone except close relatives and friends about it. We were first informed about it by his daughter, and then by the witness himself after gaining his trust. Below is his verbatim account and description of the creature. I used to go there to gather mushrooms. It was 4 years ago, during the first days of August. And so I drove up to this place, left the car. My wife went to the side of the lake. I looked around, not too many mushrooms around, and started calling my wife, Lena, let's go, let's go. But she went further away, so I couldn't hear her anymore. So I began collecting the few mushrooms that were there. I picked them up and called out for my wife again. And this is what happened next. Believe it or not, I look up and see something like burnt wood. It was thin and black, very black. I figured it was just a burned tree, so I didn't pay it attention at first, and I kept walking. The tree was still standing. I went over and thought, well, I'll take a look. I felt this attraction and urge to see this thing. Likewise, I raised my eyes, and there's a head 3 times the size of mine. It looked like a monkey's low forehead, big eyes. It looks at me, but it's literally 4 meters away, 3 or 4 meters away. So this keeps looking at me, and it's a kind face with a pleasant expression, not mean at all. I wasn't scared at all. It was overgrown with hair and black skin too, lips and nose, just like a human's. But I couldn't see the torso. I didn't see any arms or legs. I focused and wanted to talk to it since it looked intelligent, and I said, wow, just like that. As soon as I said, wow, it disappeared instantly. It did not hide behind the other tree. It just simply disappeared into thin air before my eyes. After a while, my wife came back. Afterward, I had a streak of bad luck. I got a flat tire in my car afterward. I wasn't afraid after the sighting. The whole thing was 3 meters high, maybe even more, but the torso was very thin. It was all hairy. I don't know, maybe he was standing sideways? But the main thing is that I didn't see any arms or legs. There's a really cool illustration of this creature on the post. If you want to, again, go to the post. I feel like this episode is very heavy on me being like, go to the post. Sorry about that, but it's not a visual medium, so I can't show you things. And it's really weird. It's literally like, it would be like if you drew a stick figure body, except no arms or like just a stick. It's a stick, but it's hairy, and it's got a giant monkey head. Yeah, I don't know. There was this follow-up, though. This was the first reply from Griffin66-PT2. I encourage anyone interested beyond making humorous comments to follow the link and use something to translate from Russian to English. Google Translate, for example. The complete article is informative and contains very well-researched background information about the area of this sighting. To me, it seems obvious that Alexander is an honest man and only relates what he actually saw. What he saw was a large figure through the foliage/trees. He focused on what he saw that struck him, the human nature of the face and expression. It is not uncommon for experiencers to report, and then it just disappeared, which may reflect a certain overload of mental processing that results in a brief lapse in cognition or some other more esoteric cause. The details are very precise to be made up, and I see no reason why he would do so. To me, he reads as an honest man who says what he saw, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, logically. I had an experience as a small child, 3 to 4, which I have always attributed to night terrors. Over the course of several nights, I saw a dark figure with red eyes at my bedroom window that seemed to have a flat head, thus I referred to it then and for years as Black Frankenstein. I know that Frankenstein was the name of the doctor, not the monster. For those few nights, for the only time in my life, I was sleepwalking and trying to get outside my house. My mom had to secure the door from the bedroom hallway out to the rest of the house. Nonetheless, I carried this memory for years, having only a vague, uncomfortable feeling surrounding it. I then ran across a report on the BFRO of a Bigfoot encounter a few years previous to this experience, in which a dark figure with red eyes was seen looking in windows. That location was about 4 miles away from my childhood home, along the heavily forested Chattahoochee River west of Atlanta. In the late 60s when this happened, the area was still very rural. I talked about it at our Bigfoot, and one of our mods, OMG Bigfoot, said something like, maybe the top of its head was above the top of the window, and this made it seem flat from your perspective. Mind blown. Simple explanation of what I saw that makes tons more sense than something with a flat head. Would have never thought of it on my own because I was locked into what I saw. Since that time, I've allowed for the possibility that I had an encounter with something I don't understand. Maybe Bigfoot, maybe something else. My mom had an experience with one as a teenager, and she always focused on the eyes glowing like coals of fire. Sometimes these things are generational, according to some reports. Sometimes what we remember, while totally true, is still only part of the truth. Who knows? Thanks for the story, OP. I'd love to see more encounter stories of the Almasy/Almas. So many of the rest of the comments state that they believe the man in the original article saw Bigfoot, just like this last person kind of suggested maybe happened. There's also discussion about Bigfoot being an interdimensional being, which, if you were not aware, is a very popular opinion in the cryptid community. But I'll let you do more research into interdimensional Bigfoot on your own. I'm not going to get into it here. But I did find both these stories really fascinating, and I really appreciated what that commenter said about how sometimes these encounters, it's not that the person is lying necessarily. They saw something, and their brain said, this is what you saw, because it's trying to make sense of what they saw. And maybe that isn't what actually was there, but they're not lying about what they saw, because that's what they think they saw. If that makes sense. But I like to keep a healthy bit of skepticism in me for these crazier stories, but I also don't know what's out there. So but that idea is good to keep in mind, especially when people are so earnestly telling a story about something unexplained that happened to them. And then, you inevitably see, especially on the internet, because it's the internet, but you see the comments that are like, they're flat out lying. And sometimes it's like, I don't think some of them are lying. I just think that that's what they think they saw. And maybe if we saw it from a different angle, or there was another witness, maybe we could get a different story, but we don't have that. So I don't think it's great to just flat out say people are. I get that sometimes in the comments of my True Stories episodes. Many of you are like full on skeptics. You don't believe in any sort of anything really, which is your prerogative. That's fine. And some of the comments will be like, oh, this person telling this story was lying. And it's like, look, I can't promise not ever, like everyone who writes in the True Stories hasn't, spun a little bit of a yarn, but some of them it's like, I don't think they're lying. I think they saw what they saw, even if it doesn't fit within what we think of as things you can experience in this world. Anyway, I've talked enough. Let's mosey on over to a subreddit that I do not believe we've discussed on this show yet, and that is humanoid encounters. This is still the weird fillings of the sandwich. I like to mix it up. It can't all be ghosts all the time, or I don't know, like just normal. Like, can't be. Do you want another Ouija board story? Like, sometimes, like, I just love this stuff. This like absolute batshit insane stuff that happens to people, and they can't explain it. And again, yes, of course they could be lying. Sure, they could be lying, but some of it's like, oh my god, like I don't think you're lying, and this is crazy. Like, what happened? What is it? And it's so beyond just ghosts and, even UFOs, honestly. So, get ready. This particular story was posted 9 months ago by Minus Goji. The title is, This is What I Saw in a Field in 2018. It's followed by a very strange drawing that, again, you can check out if you click on the link to the show notes. I'm sorry. I didn't really realize how visual this one would be, but you can find the link to the show notes. It looks like it was drawn with markers. It's a robot with pointy hands and feet. And you know what? I'll just tell the story because this person paints a little bit of a picture.
This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a Suburban Gothic, to follow this story.
This happened in 2018 in Germany. I was walking my dogs on the usual route I take pretty much every day. You basically walk out of the city on a road mostly used by farmers to get to their fields. It was a windy but clear day. The first thing I noticed was that my 2 dogs, both labs, didn't want to go on any further. This is highly unusual because they're always too excited to go on a walk, and they have never done that before or ever since. The second thing I noticed was this weird sort of low-frequency humming, which sounded like it came from the sky. It pretty much sounded like a really low-flying airplane. So I scanned the sky, but didn't see anything. Yes, it was weird, especially in combination with the behavior of my dogs, but I didn't really give it much thought and tried to get my dogs to keep going, but they persisted and started whining. No idea if that's the correct word. I'm not a native speaker. Now I started to worry, so I looked around the area to see what could have possibly frightened them so much. That's when I saw this strange object standing in a field about 15 meters off the side of the road. This field usually has horses in them, so it is surrounded by an electric fence. However, on this day, there were no horses there. This strange feeling of dread or primal fear filled my body completely when I stared at the object. Maybe because it didn't look like anything I've ever seen before. I felt like I was stuck to the road and couldn't move. I noticed now that the object, which I firstly believed to be some sort of machine because of its silver or chrome color, had vague, human-like features. It had 4 limbs, all ending in sharp edges. They had some black material or liquid on them, as if it had dipped them in oil. Its head also had clear edges and looked very unorganic, like it was constructed. It looked directly at me, and I could see that it was sort of blinking permanently. Its nose and mouth looked more like openings in its head. The longer I looked at it, the more strange things I noticed and the stranger I felt myself. Like I was looking at something so foreign to my understanding of the world and life that I was about to fall apart. On top of its head, it had this cone-like structure cut out at the very top where some sort of orb was. It looked like a perfect golden ball, and it was reflecting the sunlight. I also began to notice maybe the weirdest feature of this thing, which was that it was extremely muscular. Still, it looked more like a shell in which muscles were carved than actually organic matter. I also saw what looked like cables on its upper body and arms, as well as stripes on its arms and legs. As embarrassing as it sounds, I felt like I was about to shit myself. So I tried with every fiber of my being to turn around, and when, after about 30 seconds, I could move again, so I ran away as fast as I could with my dogs back home. I did tell my parents and brother, and together we checked the spot, but it was gone. To this day, I hate myself for leaving my phone at home because even though my parents say they believe me, I get this weird feeling that they actually don't. Luckily, I already went to therapy before this encounter because I was really struggling with what I saw. I've never had any kind of hallucinations in my life, have never taken any drugs, and don't have any mental illness which could explain what I saw that day. I cannot rationalize it, and made my already bad anxiety even worse. I felt like I saw something which I was not meant to, and something which my brain can't process. Now, 6 years later, I'm better, but still think about what I saw basically every day. I still live here, and the spot is about 200 away. Sometimes I go on walks there, but always with my brother, and every time I hear an airplane, I get really uncomfortable and make sure it really is a plane. I even downloaded the app Flight Radar to make sure there is a plane in the area when I hear one. The reason I'm sharing this now is that I hope to find out I am not the only one who saw something like this. Maybe someone saw something similar, and if so, please tell me. OP replied to his own post and had some updates, or corrections. Some corrections since it seems like you can't edit your post on this sub. When I said it looked like it blinked permanently, what I really mean is that it looked like it winked permanently. Used the wrong word, meaning it had one eye open and one eye closed, as seen in my drawing. Since a lot of you are American, I should have converted the distances I speak of. It stood about 50 feet off the side of the road, and the spot is about 220 yards away from where I live. Some additional information: I did never see it move or interact with me in any kind of way. I could not check the exact spot where it stood because it is on private property. As far as I'm aware, I was the only one in the area. I'm pretty certain I didn't hallucinate because my dog seemed to see it as well. I'm not sure what kind of substances it had on its limbs. It looked like oil, but it probably wasn't. I also did not smell anything out of the ordinary. Someone named Rainbow Covenant also offered this. Here's my random, unqualified opinion. The humming could be friction between the two planes of existence, like metaphysical tectonic plates rubbing together. If parallel worlds exist, there could be an infinite number of them overlapping ours, all functioning within the same ecosystem. If you could, hypothetically, catch a glimpse of something in another dimension, your brain would interpret that vision with symbols it already understands. Like in dreams, the energy you encounter gets filtered through your mind. This being could be more like a plant or something inorganic like a crystal, but your brain is seeing something more like a tin man with strange markings and tubes. Hell, it could be part of the field itself. It could be some kind of tree we aren't familiar with. Whatever it is, you only saw it because your brain thought it was helpful to your survival somehow. Otherwise, you wouldn't see a thing. We forget dreams that our brains don't find useful. We forget what we see out of the corners of our eyes, not because they aren't important, but because we don't usually need to focus on them. I think the buzzing was a natural thing that we don't usually hear, two realities rubbing against each other. Maybe that triggered your primal instinct to protect yourself, same as your dog's. That was enough to see and remember the creature. If the buzzing wasn't unsettling, if everything seemed normal to you, you could have passed on by without incident. That's what I think, at least. It would almost be impossible to trigger something like that manually. Our brains pick up on a lot more than our minds do. Changes in the environment can make us feel anxious or calm without knowing why. It's because we are picking up on the tiniest details, even without being consciously aware of them. There could have been other subliminal signs that pulled you into this that you'd never remember or even consider. Our bodies carry electromagnetic fields. Any changes in that or to the surrounding radiation could be picked up on by our bodies without us even knowing. Something to consider. I think it was an accident or a miracle, depending on how you look at it. There was also a discussion, and one of the top comments was someone who mentioned the Sandown Clown on the British Isle of Wight story. This happened in 1973. I don't have time to go into this entire story on this episode. I may in the future if you decide. I'll listen to feedback if you like these kind of humanoid stories, these different types of high strangeness than we usually cover. But basically, these two children came across this creature that they called the Sandown Clown later on, but it was like this 7-foot tall. It looked like it had a clown face, but its eyes were empty, like, I guess like jack-o'-lantern-like, and it had tattered clothes on. It only had 3 toes on each foot and 3 fingers on each hand. It had like blue gloves on. There are a lot of illustrations of it, and it's terrifying looking, honestly. But it like talked to these kids, and these kids spent a lot of time with it. And the kids even said like there were adults near them at some points, and the adults seemed like they couldn't see the creature and couldn't see them. And it was these 2 kids again playing in somewhere in 1973 on this island. And there were other things around it that seemed like could be linked to this weird story. Again, it's a very long story. It's very, very fascinating. It's pretty out there. So if you want to look it up, look up the Sandown Clown and have at it. And again, if you want me to tell the whole story, I totally will on a different episode. But for now, it's just too much to get into. So let's end off the night with the other end of our sandwich and some very fun time slip / glitch in the matrix stories. I got both of these from the Glitch in the Matrix subreddit. So this was posted by user Jameson2005X, and he titled it, "I got stuck in the summer of 1986. Time glitch, I think." I have the same routine every day. I get up at about 5 a.m., eat something real quick, and watch a little TV, get dressed, and head to work. I have one roommate, and we've had this apartment for 2-ish years. So, about 7 or so months ago, February, I got up to get ready, and everything felt very off. Couldn't put my finger on why, but everything felt creepy. Then I noticed on the counter was a tray of American flag napkins, some homemade cookies with red and blue icing on them in the shape of stars, and some what I assumed to be off-brand M&Ms. I thought it was weird since it was kind of still winter for my roommate to randomly leave out 4th of July stuff. I get some food and turn on the TV and notice it's just random channels. I can't get to any of the streaming apps. It's just regular TV, but old. It's old-looking commercials, newscasts, and one of them actually said something about a 4th of July sale. I was so freaking confused. I finally get to a weather channel, and in the corner of it has the date. July 3rd, 1986. I thought for sure it was like, I don't know, a nostalgia channel or something. But every single channel I turned, it was all old commercials and TV shows. Mind you, I was born in 2003, so I'm not too familiar with 80s stuff, so at the time, it just looked old to me, LMAO. At this point, I'm freaked out and try to call my mom. I'm not sure why, I just felt like this was who to call for some reason. When I go to dial her number, my phone just keeps trying to dial but never actually connects to the call. Now I'm really bugged out. I'm starting to panic a little now and go to wake my roommate up. On my way to her room, I stop in the hallway and see a woman in her late 70s crossing the hallway holding a tray with something on it. She goes from my roommate's room to mine and disappears. It didn't look like a ghost, that I assume, I don't know, I've never seen a ghost, but looked like a totally regular person. Panic wasn't even a word to describe myself at this point. So I ran into my roommate's room and flipped out and woke her up. I told her what was happening, expecting her to think I'm nuts, but she wanted to see what I was talking about. When she came with me, the 4th of July food was gone, and the TV was back to normal. She believes me, and we still wonder if it will happen to one of us again. All I can think is maybe there was a time glitch of some sort. Still freaks me the hell out thinking about it. Isn't that a cool one? Oh, I love that one. How freaky. Like, I wonder if it was maybe it could have been like a dream, a really vivid dream. I don't know. But I love that one. Like, all the stuff, seeing the person in the hallway, I can't even. Oof. That's a recurring nightmare of mine, is just seeing someone in my apartment. Like, waking up and there's just someone here. And it's like, oh God, now I'm going to have it again tonight. Ugh. And here to end off the entire evening is another very fun time slip that I found very entertaining. This was in response to the original post, and it's by yet another weeb girl. Sounds very much like a temporal rift. They happen from time to time. My family had it happen on a trip to the White Cliffs experience in Dover, UK. They turned the war tunnels into a museum where they have replica equipment on display in different rooms, and a tour guide explains to the group. As our group exited the medical bay room and turned into a tunnel to head where the gift shop was, we saw a 1940s airman, a gent in a business suit, and a nurse step through a door at the opposite end of the tunnel. The gift shop was off to the left in a side tunnel. They stopped dead in their tracks and fell silent when they saw us, as did we on seeing them. The nurse whispered to the guy in the suit, and all three stepped back through the door, and we heard it lock. Confused, we shared a glance with the Chinese family behind us, who also saw them. The Australian couple and group of German students ahead of us didn't see them at all, only my family and the Chinese family behind us. We sent an email that night asking about it, and the staff who responded said they've never had reenactments or costumed people there, nor do they have projector systems anywhere in the war tunnels. They did, however, say that another family, we assume the Chinese family, also inquired, and that the area we saw the door open leads to a collapsed area and has been welded shut for more than 50 years. And that is the end of this dark Reddit. What a way to go out, right? If you like this show and you'd like to follow it on social media, you can follow it at scareyoutosleep on all the socials, and you can follow me personally at Shelby B. Novak. If you'd like ad-free episodes, you can visit patreon.com/scareyoutosleep for ad-free episodes, as well as several bonus episodes I put out. I put out the first the first episode of Ted the Caver. I will be doing the whole series. And I just put out a Ramble You to Sleep today. I put out the video and the audio, depending on how you like to consume your media. So there's a video there if you'd like. And what else can I... Oh, if you'd like a story you'd like submitted, or you'd like to submit to be considered for the show, you can send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. I will repeat that. It is scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. I do have one quick note about Patreon. I mentioned this in the Ramble on Patreon, so my patrons already know this if they listen to the Ramble. You may not have, which is totally understandable. It's called aka Bore You to Sleep for a reason. But Patreon is putting some pressure on people, it's me included, to raise the prices of our tiers. So the way it works, my $1 tier, I did put in place just kind of as a nicety to be like, here, so it's an easily accessible way for you to get an ad-free episode. Since my main feed has to have ads on it, that's just I signed a contract and everything, and I need to, keep my lights on. But I will say the breakdown of that $1 a month amount, it comes out to like basically nothing. I have to give Patreon a percentage. It also gets taxed, so the government gets 30% of that because they all combine. So at the end of the day, I only get like a few cents out of the $1 tier. It almost feels like they're about to phase out the $1 tier, because even now I can set each episode on. By the way, this is something you can do as well if you have a favorite episode or something that you like, just that one as an ad-free episode. You can purchase each individual episode. For most of them, it's a newer feature, so some of the older episodes may not have it just turned on, but they only allow me to go as low as $3. I tried to make each of these ad-free episodes just $1 if someone wanted to just buy one instead of have a subscription, because sometimes we can't have a subscription. I understand, our whole lives are subscriptions, so that's why I wanted to put that in place. Patreon only lets me go down to $3. That's the lowest it will let me go. It gives me an error if I go lower than that. So I will say that. They also charge more on iOS. So if you're ever purchasing anything through Patreon, not just for my show, for any show, do it on a browser, not on your phone, because Apple is even greedier than Patreon. So that is all to say. I'm not changing anything tomorrow or anything, but it does look like there is some writing on the wall that this may be something that will be enacted. And it's also something that I've had many people tell me I need to go to a higher tier, just because, again, it does add up to some money, but it basically I make sense on the dollar for those $1 tiers. Something I like to do for years, but if it is getting kind of maybe phased out possibly, and I'm getting emails that are like, hey, it's been a while since you've raised your prices. So what I will probably do is not necessarily raise my other prices, but maybe just phase out that $1 tier. And before I do that though, everyone will be grandfathered in to your $1 tier. So if you currently have a $1 tier and you keep it, you will just keep being at $1. It won't raise. If I get rid of it, that tier, it's just that new people who subscribe won't be able to get that $1 tier anymore. So if you're in all of your tiers, wherever you'd like to be, don't worry, you won't get any sort of raised prices. You will be grandfathered into that price. I want to make that very clear. You won't get a sudden raise in prices. That will not happen ever. Patreon has assured me of that. I made sure with Patreon that will happen, and they have been very clear, like, these prices will get grandfathered in if they are already. They're also upping, just some behind the scenes for those of you who don't know, they're upping the percentage they take from like us as creators. Again, I am grandfathered into the percentage that I already had, but they did let us know if you start a new Patreon for maybe a different project or just to, I guess, spread the word, they are upping their percentages they will be taking from creators as well. So it's kind of losing money all over the place. I know, the economy, I know. So I just wanted to let you all know that. I have held out for as long as possible. I get told constantly. I went to a Patreon event, the one I mentioned on the show, where I actually got paid to speak there. And some of the people I was speaking to were asking, like, what my tiers were, and I explained them to them, and everyone thought there was one person who's actually TikTok famous. I'm not going to say what their name is, though. But they were like, they just, like, tore me a new fucking asshole. I'm not kidding, because they were like, how could you have a $1 tier? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Because, again, they know in the breakdown between taxes and Patreon, you're only making a few cents. So, again, I had that tier to be, to have something free. I just hate, I've been there where I didn't have the $1 for the tier, so I get it. But I just want to put that out there. If this announcement comes, I have held on for a long time, making, I don't know what the breakdown would be, honestly. We'll say 50 cents. We'll just be maybe 50 cents. I think it's actually maybe less than that, but we'll say 50 cents for each $1 tier. So, if that day comes, I just want to give you a warning. It's not happening again. It's not happening overnight, but it's probably coming up. We'll say that. Okay. I already yammered on enough about that. Go listen to the Bloody Disgusting podcast. Go watch the Bloody Disgusting podcast. It's all on YouTube now. I just interviewed the minds behind the Trouble with Tessa, this incredible new show on Screambox. I have been singing its praises over on Bloody Disgusting because I am in love with the show. I'm in love with it. They gave me the first 2 episodes to watch ahead of time. It's a blast. And I interviewed the 2 directors and the producer, and we had so much fun. So yeah, go to the Bloody Disgusting YouTube and watch over there. It's been a ton of fun. I'm learning how to edit in fun ways. Look out for my little editing skills that I'm growing. And I think that's all. I did not bake this week. It's been hot, and I went hiking instead. So, and those pictures are on Instagram if you want to see my little hiking trip with my girlfriends. Yeah, so I'm going to let you go. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.
This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a Suburban Gothic, to follow this story.
Hello, Toxic Avenger fans. You know what that theme song means. It's time for another exclusive audio clip from The Toxic Avenger in theaters August 29th. This time, we bring you the sounds of someone cooking breakfast and listening to the news. Enjoy.
Here live from New Chemistry High School for varsity tournament season. Coach Stanwyck, what can we expect from the Crimson Beaks this year?
New Chem is gonna nuke them.
Wouldn't want to be the Kennedy Cougars this Saturday, huh?
Man, fuck the Cougars. Fuck the Cougars!
Oh my god. So switching gears, we have a special exclusive...
Okay, that's great. Do you want to be part of a winning team? Want to stand up against the forces of evil, like the Kennedy Cougars and beyond? Join the fight at I'mWithToxie.com and then see The Toxic Avenger in theaters on August 29th. That's I'mWithToxie, TOXIE.com.
I found tapes in the house, audio, video of a woman.
The Screambox original series, The Trouble with Tessa, is available now. Watch it today, only on Screambox.